The dictionary defines an event as anything that happens or is regarded as happening. As stated by Lucas in our textbook, The Art of Public Speaking, today I'm going to expand on a day in the life of August 1962. Interesting, like gathering information, pop stars lead in the important facts of 1962. According to the People History, the year 1962 brings you the unfortunate death of Marilyn Monroe, the continued worsening of the Cold War, Russia placing ballistic missiles on Cuban land, Bob Dylan's folk music evolved into protest music, and in England, the Beatles were becoming popular with their song Love Me Do. Marilyn Monroe was born in June 1926 and died in August 1962. She had an unfortunate childhood, mainly consisted of living in foster homes. She was a model, an American actress, and a singer. Her last movie in 1962 was The Misfits. It co-starred Clark Gable, and the screenplay was written by her then husband, Arthur Miller. Marilyn's life consisted of illness, personal problems, and death from an overdose. The Cold War, 1962 to 1979, followed the aftermath of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Talk in early July ended with Russia's Khrushchev and Cuba's Fidel Castro agreeing to place nuclear missiles in Cuba to deter the harassment of Cuba. The United States demanded the removal of these missiles. Following tense negotiations between Kennedy and Khrushchev, publicly the Soviets dismantled their offensive weapons in Cuba. In exchange, the U.S. publicly declared not to invade Cuba without direct provocation. Music in 1962. Folk music became known as protest music. Folk music was evolved from what was considered traditional music. Bob Dylan's music of 1962 was often referred to during the protests of 1962. This music was influenced by American radical traditional music by groups such as the Wobblies, the Popular Front, and the Beat dating back to the 1950s. Basically, this music fermented in young people their feelings towards civil rights and the Ban the Bomb movement. These songs engaged the terror of nuclear arms, poverty, racism, and war. Surf music. California surfers discovered a mix of Fender guitars, electric pianos, and saxophones produced a surf music vibe, which included light harmonies and cool tunes, led by Brian Wilson, who was the only non-surfer of the group. This music provided the perfect soundtrack for endless surf trips through California sunshine. Music in England. The Beatles debut at the Cavern Club. They were formerly known as the Quarrymen. The group consisted of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Pete Best. They were first seen by Brian Epstein, who became their manager and secured a record contract. Pete Best was replaced by Ringo Starr, but this caused an uproar amongst the ladies. They felt that Pete Best was very nice looking, however, he would not conform to the Beatles' hairstyle, therefore he was replaced. The 1960s summary: students demand reform on desegregation, unrestricted free speech, and withdrawal from war. They protested materialism and consumerism. They challenged the traditions surrounding sex and marriage. They argued that all paths to deeper fulfillment should be justified, including illicit drugs. Late in the 1960s, according to Schmook and their corporate sponsors, the argument remains. As critics state, this era created the welfare state and immoral, self-indulged citizens. The defenders state, America's political and social institutions are more just and the culture is more healthy. To conclude, life in the 1960s consisted of fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. Student protests, they did advance civil transform the American colleges. Americans' workplace became more diverse and poverty was reduced. 1969, United States also landed the first man on the moon. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed life in 1969.